Methodist denomination in Houston, Texas. My father, John Chester Dowden, was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. And John Chester Dowden, who was my father, was also a child molester. He sexually abused me as a child and also made attempts to sexually abuse me as an adult and sexually harassed me and also came on to me. And he is not the only clergy that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration that has sexually assaulted a minor. Another minister, Kendall Graham, who was convicted for sexual assault of a minor. And also Michael Tabb, who murdered his wife in the early 2000s, and I'm going to read an article about that. I also experienced retaliation from the Texas Annual Conference of the United Methodist denomination for speaking out about their history of employing clergy who are capable of sexually assaulting children. And I was forced to visit my kids in supervised visitation based on false accusations. And one of the places that I had to visit my children was at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church on West 43rd Street in Houston, Texas. And St. Stephen's United Methodist Church is under the Texas Annual Conference Administration, which is the same administration that employed my father, who was a child molester, and also employed Kendall Graham and Michael Tabb, and also Kirby John Caldwell, who was convicted for wire fraud. Now, why would I visit my kids at a United Methodist Church through supervised visitation? Well, the Texas Annual Conference knew this, and the reason why they would be okay with it is, well, because they don't really mind a sexual assault survivor, someone who has survived sexual assault. They don't really mind if a sexual assault victim from one of their clergy is further exploited in one of their churches. They don't really have a problem with that. They're quite okay with it. In fact, it is a form of retaliation that they engage in and are involved with, because they will retaliate against any sexual assault survivor who speaks out against their administration. So here I am, speaking out against their administration after dealing with multiple forms of retaliation from them. I was also warned by Harrison Fisher that the Texas Annual Conference would help my ex-husband, who has also been repeatedly reported for child abuse, and he has physically abused our sons. And Harrison Fisher had said that the Texas Annual Conference would assist my ex-husband in getting custody of our kids. And they would say that I was mentally ill because, after all, the Texas Annual Conference, a multi-billion-dollar administration that has a history of employing clergy that are capable of sexually assaulting minors and murdering their spouse, of course, they would be experts on mental health. So I'm doing a series where I'm going to be talking about, today I'm going to talk about the basics of, it's the basics for DCOMS, which is District's Committee on Ministry. And I'm going to read the first page. There's 22 pages in this, so this is going to be a month long. And the basics for DCOMS, which is on www.txcumc.org. Thank you for serving on your district's Committee on Ministry. The work you've agreed to do is holy work. Interesting. On behalf of your district, the Board of Ordained Ministry, the Texas Annual Conference, and the United Methodist Church, you will be interviewing God's people. I don't know. I mean, I don't really think that anybody that is capable of sexually assaulting a minor are God's people. So it would be interesting that the Texas Annual Conference thinks that, you know, people who are capable of sexually assaulting minors are God's people, but yet they will retaliate against someone who speaks out, who survives sexual assault from one of their clergy that they think is God's people, because clearly I'm not God's people since I survived sexual assault and spoke out against it. But after all, like I said, surviving sexual assault is not a sexual orientation. It's not a sexual preference. But I don't think that the Texas Annual Conference administration has figured that out yet. Okay. You'll be helping discern if they are called to one of the many forms of lay ministry to serve the church as lay volunteers, lay church staff members with specialized certifications, certified lay speakers, certified lay ministers. Or if they are called, gifted, fit, and ready to be a part, to lead, ready to be set apart to lead God's people to serve the church as ordained deacons, ordained elders, or licensed local pastors. You'll be guiding people through candidacy, a period of discernment during which people help people discern God's calling and guiding licensed local pastors throughout their ministry. Your first step, pray for and with your district committee on ministry, DCOM, for God's presence among you as you work and for God's wisdom and guidance as you make important and sometimes difficult decisions. So I wonder if God was with them when they were employing clergy that were capable of sexually assaulting minors, like my father, John Chester Dowden, or like Kendall Graham, or who sexually assaulted a minor, or Michael Tabb, who brutally beat his wife in a United Methodist parsonage. I wonder if God was with them when they selected those clergy. Your first step, okay. Pray for, and okay, I read that one. Our hope and prayer that this resource manual will help you in this holy work, because employing clergy who are capable of sexually assaulting minors and retaliating against people who are sexual assault victims from their clergy, I guess, according to them, is holy work. Membership. The following shall be represented in the membership of the DCOM C 666.2, the district superintendent, at least 6 other clergy in the district, including women, ethnic clergy, at least 1 elder who has completed the course of study whenever possible, deacons in full connection whenever possible, at least 1 clergy person age 35 or younger. At least 3 lay persons shall be members of the committee with limited vote. Interim vacancies may be filled by the district superintendent. Clergy and lay members shall be nominated annually by the district superintendent and approved by the district or annual conference. Within 10 days after election, a correct list of DCOM members and officers shall be sent to the BOM candidacy and recruitment assistance, CRA. Okay. Now I'm going to read an article. There's many articles on Michael Tabb. I'm going to read one right now. And this was by KLTV, East Texas News, published May 14th, 2003. Updated May 14th, 2003. The title is Minister Accused of Murder Found Stabbed on Plea Date. So, Michael Tabb attempted suicide, and it was at the pond just outside of my apartment on the campus of UT Tyler. In fact, I walked out that day and I saw that they were draining the pond, and I asked what was going on, and they had explained to me that Michael Tabb, who was on trial for murdering his wife in Troop, Texas, had attempted suicide and threw the knife in the pond to discard evidence. A Troop minister accused of beating his wife to death last August landed in a Tyler hospital with violent injuries Tuesday morning. By the way, Michael Tabb was employed by the Texas Annual Conference Administration before and when the murder took place, and he was placed on assignment at the First United Methodist Church in Troop, Texas. This is before First United Methodist Church in Troop, Texas separated to join the Global Methodist Conference recently in the past few years. It came on a day when prosecutors thought their case against Michael Tabb was finally coming to an end. Tabb, 41, charged in the death of Marla Tabb, was expected to plead guilty in Judge Diane DeVasto's court early Tuesday. Instead, a faculty member at UT Tyler found Tabb bleeding from multiple stab wounds next to a lake on campus. There's no word yet on whether the wounds were self-inflicted. They were self-inflicted. Tabb failing to make his 10 a.m. hearing at the courthouse prompted Smith County authorities to launch a Tyler search. Smith County District Attorney Jack Skeen and authorities quickly geared into an area where Tabb's parents lived. Skeen says the former minister left his parents' residence around 8 a.m. for a walk that same morning. They're going to start looking in the areas around his parents' house because he was on foot, says Skeen. His vehicle is still at home. Around 9 a.m., down the road from the Tabb home, a UT Tyler employee reported finding an injured man laying next to a lake on campus. Authorities confirmed the man laying there bleeding from stab wounds, one to the neck, was 41-year-old Michael Tabb. EMS teams moved Tabb to East Texas Medical Center, where he underwent approximately 3 hours of surgery, according to Tabb defense attorney Buck Files. The latest reports have Tabb listed in critical condition. Prosecutors later in the day requested that Tabb's bond be increased to $1 million, saying he's now considered a potential flight risk. Tabb's attorney, Buck Files, says he assumes Tabb would still accept a plea agreement, but say it's too soon to explain why Tab never made his court date. The course of where we are is we don't know why he's in the hospital. We just know he's in the hospital, says Files. Could it have been a suicide attempt? Sure. Could it have been a victim of a crime? Sure. Until we figure out where he is, it's premature to figure out where we're going in the future. As for Tab's plea agreement, prosecutors say they want to consult Marla Tab's family before making their next move. Authorities say they're not ruling out the possibility someone else knows more about the stabbing. They did get a description of a man seen leaving that area, but at this time, it's not a substantiated claim. Troop residents who've spent months dealing with the case had varying reactions on Tuesday's events. Personally, I can understand it. I can feel sorry for him. He's in such a state of distraught, says Norman Warren. That's a strange statement because Michael Tabb brutally beat his wife in a United Methodist parsonage, the First United Methodist parsonage. He was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. I think originally it was a black eye on the city of Troop. It has been some time, recalls John Witzel with First United Methodist Church of Troop. Certainly time can heal some wounds. I think the city has moved past this, and this is certainly a tragic twist to what was already a tragic situation. Okay. I'm going to read another article here. And this article was, it's from the My Plainview website. It's a news article. Minister gets 55 years in prison for wife's murder. And this was written September 28, 2003. Okay. As an East Texas minister was sentenced to 55 years in prison Monday after pleading guilty to murder in the beating death of his wife. The Reverend Michael Tabb had originally accepted a plea bargain that would send him to prison for 50 years, but prosecutors increased the sentence after Tabb tried to commit suicide this spring on the day he was to plead guilty. Marla Tabb, 35, was savagely beaten to death in August 2002 in the parsonage behind the Methodist Church. Isn't this interesting? Marla Tabb was savagely beaten to death in August 2002 in the Methodist parsonage behind the Methodist Church in the tiny town of Troop, where her husband was pastor. She was left lying in the bedroom in a pool of blood, still wearing pajamas. Now, they say in the parsonage behind the Methodist Church. Could have been a typo? I don't know. It is interesting and convenient that United was left out. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it is interesting because not really hearing much about the Texas annual conference in these articles, which is because in the past they've been able to control the narrative regarding media and clergy being convicted of crimes. This minister's lawyer, F.R. Buck Files, said Tabb accepted the plea in state district court to spare his family and wife's family the pain of a trial, to ensure that his children were never hurt by hearing about the unpleasant details, mainly because he did not stand a chance in trial. Not a chance. He brutally beat his wife. He cleaned up the crime scene. They sprayed luminol on his shoes. Because he had cleaned his shoes lit up after they sprayed luminol on his shoes. The question was never whether Mike killed Marla, but rather why he killed her. Files told the Associated Press, "I agreed with his decision that it would be better to avoid the issue of why." The minister sat stone-faced as Marla Tabb's sister Melanie Owen of the Woodlands gave an emotional victim's impact statement in court. She told Tabb he had orphaned his 2 young children, a 3-year-old and a 15-month-old. They were present during the murder. And this was a United Methodist minister that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. Was God with them when they approved him to be a United Methodist clergy? Owen told him that she and her family are haunted by thoughts and images of what you did to Marla. Did she suffer? You mutilated her so badly that we did not have the chance to look at her beautiful face one more time. A teary-eyed Owen told Tabb during a victim impact statement in court, "Keep in mind, as I said, Michael Tabb was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration and placed on assignment at their church in Troop, Texas, when he brutally beat his wife in a United Methodist parsonage beyond recognition so badly that her family could not view her face one last time." In the evening, Marla Tabb was killed just 6 weeks after she gave birth to a second son. Authorities received a frantic 911 call from her husband, who said he had come home to find his wife dead. They had a newborn at home. This was a United Methodist clergy that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And the way that she was portrayed in the Dateline story was as though she was incredibly difficult, just a very unhappy woman. Who is happy if they're with a man that is capable of brutally beating them beyond recognition 6 weeks after giving birth? Overturned picture frames and lamps in the bedroom showed Marla Tabb struggled fiercely with her attacker in a United Methodist parsonage that was a part of a United Methodist church that was under the Texas Annual Conference administration, where Michael Tabb was placed on assignment under the Texas Annual Conference administration, the same administration that retaliated against me for sexual assault, the same administration that is over St. Stephen's United Methodist Church, where supervised visitations for the domestic relations office take place weekly. Autopsy results indicate she sustained blunt force trauma to her head and a jaw broken in several places. The murder weapon was never found. The minister, a former Navy chaplain who had just moved to the town of 1900 with his young family, maintained his innocence. Friends said his grief was convincing when he attended his wife's funeral in Beaumont. But authorities charged Tabb with murder after finding blood on his shoes and in his truck bed. They sprayed luminol in his truck bed, and they sprayed luminol on his shoes. At his trial, scheduled for next month, prosecutors had planned to show proof Michael Tabb was at a gentleman's club while his wife's family was burying her. The Tyler Morning Telegraph reported in its Tuesday editions. Let me read that again. And as I read that, let me remind you that this is a United Methodist clergy that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And what that paragraph is saying is that he was at a gentleman's club while his wife was being buried. And this is a clergy that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration of the United Methodist denomination. At his trial, scheduled for next month, prosecutors had planned to show proof Tabb was at a gentleman's club while his wife's family was burying her, the Tyler Morning Telegraph reported in its Tuesday editions. They said witnesses would have testified about a secret Tabb tried to keep from his wife. It was very important for our family, for Mike to show up, confess that he murdered Marla, Owen said. We didn't want him to proclaim his innocence. We wanted him to stand up before everyone and admit he murdered her. Just like I wanted the Texas Annual Conference to take responsibility for their part in retaliating against me, which has greatly impacted my life. But now I understand they are not capable. They don't have the integrity or the ethics to do that. And they care far more about revenue and their reputation than about the life of someone who's been sexually assaulted by one of their clergy. Owen said later that she was disappointed that Tabb showed no remorse in the courtroom. And this was My Plain View, an article that was written. It doesn't show the name of the person. I'm not seeing the name of the person that wrote it. So what is interesting is that there's multiple articles, but I've only read 2 so far. And in those 2, not once is the Texas Annual Conference mentioned. Not once. And he was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration of the United Methodist denomination and had been placed on assignment at the United Methodist Church in Troop, Texas, where he brutally beat Marla Tabb beyond recognition and orphaned their children, and attempted suicide at a pond on the campus of UT Tyler outside of my apartment. The Texas Annual Conference has a track record that they don't want the public to know about. And that is where I come in. Since my life has been affected by their track record of a lack of ethics and morality, I am here to show that.